Awesome. Well, here we are. Thank you all so much for being here. We're so excited to have you on the biggest day of our year, National Voter Registration Day. Today is Tuesday, September 17th. It's especially exciting for us because we have many, many partners here with us who are also celebrating the day and are just as jazzed about it as we are. So that always adds to the fun. So thank you for being here. We are going to get started. We have like a very fast, rapid fire 30-minute conversation planned for you. That's really just to get you excited about the day. There's already so much going on in terms of social media. There's so much going on in terms of celebrity engagement and folks tweeting and posting about it, which we love. So here we go. We have all of our panelists here and we're going to get started. I will start by introducing myself. My name is Chyann. I am the campaign director of National Voter Registration Day. Super excited to be joined by all of you. We have such a very cool group of panelists who have become friends over the past years because I've been bugging the heck out of all of you. So I want to introduce all of our panelists here. So we have Tappan Vickery from Headcount. We have Morgan Murray from League of Women Voters, Jerica Richardson from National Urban League, Chris Palumbo from Rock the Vote, and Eddie Zerby from Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. So thank you all for joining. And this is, again, just a rapid fire conversation that will be about National Voter Registration Day, and you'll get to hear from the partners on what they're doing and what they have planned for this big day and for the days leading up to GOTV. So let's get started. I will throw it to National Urban League and then we'll go around the room. Tell us about your organization and what you have planned for today. Kick it off with Jerica and then pass it to Morgan, Tappan, Eddie, and Chris.
Well, happy National Voter Registration Day, Cheyenne, and thank you so much for bringing us all together and leading this amazing effort around the country. So, as you mentioned, I'm Jerica Richardson. I'm the Senior Vice President for Equitable Justice and Strategic Initiatives at the National Urban League. And the National Urban League is one of the nation's oldest and largest legacy civil rights organizations. And we have lifted up our Reclaim Your Vote campaign this cycle. And we are really just using the power of the 92 affiliates that we have across the country and the power of our young professional movement. So about half of those folks involved in the Urban League movement are age 40 and younger. And so we really wanted to tap into that energy and power, as well as the guild members who are also our auxiliary group volunteers who are aged 40 and older. But we are really working in earnest to register voters on the ground and also engage voters online. And so we are in high schools, we're on college campuses, we are in the community at various locations, at houses of worship, really everywhere the Urban League has a presence, that is where we are across the country. And so we are doing all that we can to energize and engage voters. And we are also on this National Voter Registration Day, lifting up poll worker recruitment. So when you are registering to vote or checking your voter registration with us, we are also registering folks or recruiting folks to be poll workers. So there's a lot more. I know we're going to dive more into the conversation, but just wanted to share that. And thanks again for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jerica.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Cheyenne, and really excited to share the stage with such incredible partners. So my name is Morgan. I'm from the League of Women Voters, and the League of Women Voters is really a 104-year-old grassroots nonpartisan organization. We're represented in all 50 states plus DC, and we're really dedicated to empowering voters and defending democracy. We do that in a few different ways. First, through voter registration and education, which is the focus of today, but also through advocacy and litigation. And we do voter registration all year round. So that's both in person and online through our one-stop shop election resource, vote411.org. But we have 500 plus affiliates across the country hosting events both today and throughout the week to celebrate National Voter Registration Day. Folks are at schools, high schools, community colleges, universities, but also at libraries and museums. We've even got some folks engaging voters at WNBA game, as well as UPS warehouses and various Lush stores across the country. So we've got some virtual events as well. One state is hosting a virtual office hours for folks to call in and get their voting mechanics questions answered. But also one state is hosting kind of a statewide live webinar for schools to get their high school students both registered and pre-registered for those who are eligible. So we've got a lot of different events going on, kind of a diverse set of events, and we're really excited to kick off this election season with this important day.
Thanks, Morgan.
I think I'm next. Is that right? Tappan Vickery. I am the Senior Director of Strategy and Programming with Headcount. We are a nonpartisan voter registration organization that focuses on targeting young voters through culture. We were initially started by a musician and a fan who thought that if all the folks that were at the show with them were voting, we would be better off. And since then, we've evolved a great deal. We're also a founding member of National Voter Registration Day, and I've actually been on the project since it started, which is really exciting because today we're breaking some internal records. This year we are at over 120 community events that our team leaders have set up in 69 cities all over the country. We have our marquee event here in New York City where I am right now. It's right outside of where I'm sitting. We've closed down a block and we have a bunch of nonprofit partners, public art, and working with the city and NYU to engage students. And it's just really a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day, I hope, all over the country. In addition to our physical footprint, we do a lot of work with our artists and influencers and brand partners around NVRD. And so I think, we've reached out to over 1,000 artists asking them to post. We don't control everybody that will post, but we know several hundred already have. And just really trying to break down barriers and meet young voters where they are through trusted messengers today so that we're able to engage and make sure people are ready for Election Day.
Love it. OG Tappan, thank you. And now let's hear from Eddie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for having us, Chyann. Thank you so much for all of your work and your team's work to get us to today. I know it's been a lot this year, but really excited to see all the events so far. As Chyann mentioned, my name is Eddie Zervi. I'm the Deputy Director at the Students Learn, Students Vote Coalition. We are the national hub and largest nonpartisan network in the country dedicated to increasing college student voter participation. And we help run programs that support campus and nonprofit leaders that are working on this around the nation. One of our programs, which is called Campus Takeover, was specifically created to help recruit and support college campuses that are hosting civic holiday celebrations throughout National Voter Registration Day, National Voter Education Week, Vote Early Day, and Election Hero Day. And we've just seen that the civic holidays are such fun and accessible way for campuses to do democratic engagement work. So we do a lot of outreach to invite them as partners and provide resources so that they can reach more students through their celebrations. So when this program first started up in 2018, only a few dozen college campuses around the nation were signed up as official NVRD partners. And as we kick off NVRD today, we currently have almost 2,000 individuals opted into Campus Takeover that are hosting civic holiday events on more than 1,065 campuses. One of our big priorities this year was supporting community colleges specifically. We started up a community college concert competition with Levi's, Good Trouble Collaborative, and MTV Showtime to help get resources out to community college partners doing this work. And we currently have more than 163 community colleges plugged into the competition and signed up to host NVRD events today. So a lot of those campuses got grants from NVRD, pizzas from Pizza to the Polls, and are going to continue to get more resources throughout the rest of the holidays. So if you're interested in seeing what campuses are up to today, just follow our hashtag Campus Takeover to take a look at all the different and creative events that campuses are going to be hosting.
Eddie, thank you. Chris, last but not
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Happy National Voter Registration Day. Super excited to be here and in great company. Chris Palumbo, Director of Corporate Partnerships with Rock the Vote. Rock the Vote is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We were founded in 1990 in response to the censorship of rap and hip hop artists. Our first partnership with MTV launched the Censorship is Un-American campaign, which activated millions of young people across the country to exercise their rights and represent their interests. For over 30 years, Rock the Vote has been dedicated to building the political power of young people. We've revolutionized the way we use culture and technology to engage young people in the civic process. And we do that through voter registration, education, mobilization, and by working to break down the barriers to participation. Today on National Voter Registration Day, we're working with our partners to ensure that voter registration tools and resources are reaching audiences and communities. We have a lot of really exciting partnerships launching today with Miami Heat, Peanuts Worldwide, Voice in Sports, and we're working to uplift the hard work that our partners are doing across our social media platforms, in addition to kind of, just driving our ongoing efforts across our social media platforms that are and our website to engage voters and make sure that every eligible person has the opportunity to register to vote, check their registration status, and make sure that their voice is heard in the upcoming election.
Thank you so much. We have our veterans here, and you guys have just demonstrated how you've leaned into all of your strengths and are bringing those strengths forward today. So thank you so much for being here and for telling us what you guys have planned for today. So I'm going to throw the next question to headcount. So National Voter Registration Day has become a special day of celebrating democracy each year, especially in federal election years. But a 2020 study found 27% of Americans reported not being registered because they didn't know how or kept forgetting, did not have time, were too busy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And among unregistered voters ages 18 to 24, so the youth demographic, this percentage was even higher at 42%. So what unique strategies have you found at Headcount to be most effective for engaging and registering youth voters?
Hi. So, the statistics always strike me. I think one of the things with young voters is to remember that we're not teaching civics in schools. And so Headcount really thinks about how can we make it fun, something that you're not learning in school in most states, and how can we meet young people where they are? And so that is our main strategy, whether it's through a brand, being at a concert, a sporting event, is to just really be accessible. It takes literally 90 seconds to register to vote, y'all. It is not a complicated process. But what can be complicated is people having access to do it and knowing how easy it is. It feels intimidating. And our peer-to-peer model, whether it's online or also in the field, the peer-to-peer model also works because you're working with people who are your age, who are fans of the same culture that you are, cultural event, cultural leader, and you're able to really engage and feel safe in that space. Ever since 2020, we've also been doing sweepstakes based on checking your voter registration status, which has been highly effective. And that's just a really fun, legally compliant way to encourage people to make sure that they are registered and also get them into our flow so that we can get them through election day, because it's not just about voter registration. The sweepstakes are once in a lifetime opportunities to do something with an artist or a brand, and that something you can't buy. And it's really unique and special, and people engage around that as well. We consider ourselves to really be putting people into the top of the funnel, which if you're in the democracy space, you want to get people registered into the flow. So we're the entry point, and then we're the first and second turnout point. We do know that once people vote for the first time, young voters, 85% of them will go on to vote again. And once they register, they're going to vote at a higher rate as well. So we really lean in and support people in that entry point to make them lifetime voters.
Absolutely. And you touched on something kind of specifically in your talking points about talking to voters and the importance of talking to youth voters. So having those tailored talking points are really important, especially coming from a trusted voice like Headcount. So would love to hear from Rock the Vote and League of Women Voters and Students Learn Students Vote Coalition as well. So our local organizations are hitting the ground all day today with voter registration drives that are happening all across the country. And as we talk about those talking points, they're preparing to speak to voters. So what is the best piece of advice that you guys have for mitigating these contentious conversations that are going to come up around the elections, and how do they stick to nonpartisan points? Let's start with Rock the Vote.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So I think it's super important here to just keep the conversation centered around civic engagement, understanding that, there are going to be different viewpoints, but, making sure it's respectful, keeping the dialogue encouraging, making sure that you're using, neutral, nonpartisan, factual resources that provide clear information, and reminding everyone ultimately that it's a shared goal, to ensure that everyone's voice is heard. And that's what makes an election fair and inclusive.
Totally agree. Morgan, at League of Women Voters, what do you think?
Yeah, I think very similarly, some strategies folks can use is focusing on the voter's needs. What does that voter need in that moment to register, check their registration, to get them to participate. And, it's important that, we're not here to support or oppose candidates, or even to debate issues. We just want everyone to participate in democracy, including them. So maybe acknowledging that you understand that, they have certain viewpoints and certain feelings, but kind of redirecting the conversation to the mechanics of registering and checking their registration status. And today's a celebration, so we want to keep it light and fun.
Absolutely. Keep it fun. Eddie, what do you think about that, especially when you're talking to students?
No, I mean, this is honestly one of the main things that we emphasize when talking with like first time and young voters, not just because of like nonprofit restrictions or perceptions, but we actually believe that this is going to be one of the most effective ways to mobilize these types of voters. Like young people need a genuine message to be mobilized, and they can be very wary of partisan actors with a hidden agenda. So as you celebrate NVRD and do other voter engagement programs, some of the things that we like to emphasize for our partners. First, you can still connect with voters and you can still personalize voting for people by focusing on things such as like values, issues, or like even who they vote for, like their community, right? Whether that's geographic or identity based. By being able to focus on these things and not like the candidates running, voters can more easily see themselves, like connect the issues they care about with what's on the ballot. It personalizes voting for them. It also helps them see themselves as part of a larger thing, not just voting for themselves, but voting as a block that can like really create change in the long term. And it avoids the messiness of candidates. And then the other thing that we really like to talk about, I mean, you all already mentioned this, like voters tend to really underestimate how knowledgeable they are about what they'll be voting on and really overestimate how complicated voting can be. So just like stick to educating and walking people through the process, and especially in a year like 2024, like emphasize the importance of down ballot races. Folks aren't just voting for president this year. And if you are able to point to a few local or state elections, that might be easier for people to relate voting to communities they most care about and feel more knowledgeable about.
Absolutely. And just want to piggyback off of that. There are 80,000 positions on the ballot this year, and only 500 of those are federal. So when you're out talking to voters and they're saying, "Oh, I don't know which presidential election candidate to vote for," it's so much more than that. So just like Eddie said, definitely emphasize the importance of the down ballot elections, but then also make sure that they're educated on what those elections are in their own local areas, so in their city and state as well. So thank you for that. Great points. Now I want to pass it to Jerica at National Urban League. So question for you, since Urban League has chapters all over the country, you're a historic civil rights organization, and you are a trusted voice in the African American community as well as cultural communities all over the country. So what talking points do you have for organizations that are registering voters and communities where they may feel apathetic towards registering to vote and their role in the political process? What do you say to the folks that are like, "Oh, this doesn't really matter"?
Well, thank you for the question, Cheyenne. I would encourage organizations to lean into listening. I think oftentimes we could be very quick to start talking at people, but I think your message and the public education that I think we all on this call really want to do is more likely to resonate and sink in when you do start with listening. And so really getting to the core and the heart of the reason why they're apathetic, oftentimes it's connected to disappointment It may be connected to someone being disenfranchised at one point or having a bad experience at the polls. It may be connected to someone maybe voting and not necessarily seeing the outcomes that they may have liked. And sometimes that is a disconnect between a particular election or a candidate that they might be voting for because of a particular issue, and not necessarily understanding if that issue is something that's even in that person's wheelhouse or purview, right? A lot of times when we talk about the difference between local elections, state elections, and presidential elections, especially if these are voters that have not been engaging regularly and really have maybe lacking in some of the civics education that we know really there has been uh, a lack of since the 1970s. There are gaps, and we don't sometimes know what we don't know. And so starting with listening and I think helps. And then the public education piece, the part is they're feeling like their vote doesn't matter or it's not going to make a difference. That's when you're able to really, I think, hammer home how your vote is your voice, and how, yes, it's important to vote in this particular election, but it's also important to vote in every single election. And it's important to vote up and down the ballot and educate yourself. And so I think we really have to create this culture of civic engagement. We also have to impress upon folks that we might be talking about voting today, but what's connecting to voting is also the census. All of these things matter. So if you're concerned, maybe the apathy comes from, or the disappointment comes from what you believe to be a lack of resources in your community, some of that is are people in your community filling out the census forms? Are you being counted? And based on that count, are the resources flowing to the community in a real representative way? So that's where I think it starts, is with listening and then understanding kind of where the apathy is coming from and responding accordingly. But I think it's a great question, and something that we all have to be sensitive to, because people have real experiences that really challenge what and drive why they might show up or not. But the goal is to make sure that no one is sitting on the couch this election.
Absolutely. Well said. And thank you so much for emphasizing that voting is not the stopping point. There's this interconnectedness with how we engage with government. And thank you so much for mentioning the census, because we'll be coming up on that pretty soon as well, and making sure folks understand how all of this is related. So really appreciate that. Awesome. Well, as we close out, I wanted to do just a super fast lightning round to give all of you some motivation that are listening and out registering voters today, or maybe have a plan to register voters leading up to GOTV. So I'm going to go around the room and just have all of the partners give some motivation. So remind everyone why this is important, especially in these types of elections where you have these really difficult conversations out in the field. Talk about the impact of the work and how they're trusted in the community. So we'll give like a minute to each of you to go around the room. And I'll start with Jerica since you left it off.
Well, thanks again, Cheyenne. Well, I'm really just excited. And I will say this is National Voter Registration Day, but we have been registering our community and working with partners in earnest really since the spring. And I will say, out of everyone that we've engaged with, I am so excited by our young voters and our new voters. I think a lot of times we turn on the television and you might hear from news outlets and others, oh, young voters are apathetic or they're upset about this and that. But I have been seeing so much energy. I think they are really turning a lot of their activism into excitement. And I just encourage all of us to tap into that space. And I think the best credible messengers are coming from the communities themselves. And so we've heard a lot from younger voters. We've been recording them, and at our voter registration events, been having them record themselves in front of our Reclaim Your Vote campaign and go live, or, really just post themselves on TikTok at our activations. And I just really encourage all of you to do the same. I think really flooding the zone and letting these voters, our new voters, letting them talk about why they're voting and why it matters. That should be what's driving social media. Hearing from voters themselves, not just the folks that do this day in and day out, because we're preaching to the choir. We know we love this and we live for it, but really just tapping into that energy that I know we all see out there.
Awesome. Chris, how is Rock the Vote inspiring voters and keeping folks motivated?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is super exciting, like echoing what was just said, to see the energy and the enthusiasm and, using National Voter Registration Day as kind of like a moment to really talk about the importance of voting. And the impact of this work is so critical because ultimately it strengthens our democracy and, it ensures that all eligible voters have the opportunity to participate. So, by getting out there and, we're trying to uplift those that are actually in the field and having these conversations because, the hard work that they're doing and providing these resources is really just working to empower individuals to have their voice heard and, really play a part in shaping the future of their communities and the country.
Well said. Morgan, how are you keeping the leagues motivated and engaged?
Yes, I echo again a lot of what was already said, but I think, just making sure that everyone has the tools to participate. We talked about how really communities are the best messengers. If there are folks in your community that that really need this information, may be left out, maybe historically left out, intentionally or unintentionally. Nonpartisan doesn't have to mean non-targeted. So, being sure that we're being inclusive and making sure that all folks have the opportunity. So I think that's really important. Using your connection to people to your advantage. So, there may be folks that are more receptive to the message from you. So I think, just using your voice to kind of encourage and educate others to bring them into the fold is important. Using those kind of warm contacts. And then registration is great and is a very critical piece, but turnout is even better. So even focusing on those next steps in the process. So I know we've got all the civic holidays coming up to help with that, but giving resources for folks to actually turn out to vote. You can follow all that and more on vote411.org, but there are plenty of other resources to help folks really make sure that they're casting their ballot and everyone's critical to the process, including all of us. So it's really up to us to create the world that we want to live in. And, the starting place is voter registration.
Love it. Passing the torch to the civic holidays. Speaking of, Eddie, what do you think about keeping students motivated?
I mean, I think the thing that we most love about NVRD and the civic holidays and what we really emphasize to partners is that there's no wrong way to celebrate. And like, no matter how big or small a partner is, no matter how much experience they have, how comfortable they are doing voter registration and voter engagement work, like they have so much power to mobilize voters in their community because of that background that they have. At the end of the day, these are the people that are going to know best how to communicate with voters in their community, and voters are going to trust them the most because they know that they're there year in, year out, looking and advocating for their interests. So NVRD and the civic holidays make it really, really easy for all organizations to be able to celebrate the holidays and help mobilize voters in their community. Like Morgan was saying, it starts with voter registration. We got to make sure folks are registered before upcoming deadlines. And after that, we got to make sure that they are informed and confident voters, helping them make a plan to vote and helping them actually turn out. So the next holiday is going to be National Voter Education Week on October 7th. I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks away from now. And so I'm really excited to just see how everybody's going to close out today, see all the energy from NVRD, give ourselves a chance to relax, breathe a little bit, and then see all the great events that we're going to see for National Voter Education Week and the other civic holidays.
Absolutely. And Tappan, last but not least, you guys are like the champions of leaning into media and celebrity voices and really engaging the youth. So tell us what you are doing to keep folks motivated.
Well, we are definitely doing just that. We're looking for a lot of our celebrity leaders and partners to post and energize their fan base to be that trusted messenger. I just got distracted on this to see Olivia Rodrigo's post today, which was super exciting. We were on tour with her this summer. We also got posts from Alicia Keys and like other stalwarts in the community. So it's really, it's very exciting to see that momentum and to see it draw attention to National Voter Registration Day. But you know what really sets Headcount apart from like a celebrity, like a organization that is just celebrity focused, is our 60,000 volunteers nationwide. And I mentioned that we had, we have 120 plus events going on right now over the course of the week. There's even more. And knowing that our volunteers are out there hitting the streets, like, and I'll do a little throwback. Y'all, National Voter Registration Day, the idea was literally to go hit parking lots. And the fact that the White House endorsed MVRD today and like that journey and what has come from this grassroots community to make a civic holiday, it did not exist before this. And now we have everybody's attention and we're really doing things to make this a moment. Like, I think if that's not inspiring, I don't know what is. That's the definition of like a grassroots movement success. And I think so many people here and that are probably watching were a part of that. So that to me is motivation to keep going for forever. And once a voter, most likely always a voter, unless we do something wrong. And we're going to make sure you're prepared so that you don't get turned away. So please register and be a part of this movement for democracy. I like to say it's a movement for democracy, not politics, because I think there are two different things. So
They are.
let's be a part of a movement for democracy together.
Wow, what a way to close us out. Thank you so much for emphasizing that growth, because you're absolutely right. If we've made all this progress thus far, imagine what we can do in the next 10 years. So thank you so much, Tappan, and all of you for being here. We are so excited to have you here on the busiest day, National Voter Registration Day. But thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to local organizations and our partners and keep them motivated. Really appreciate the time, and have a great National Voter Registration Day. We'll see you during the civic holidays. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.